Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Robert Barr, and this is Reverend Sharon Dittmar, who's joined us before and is joining us again. I'm delighted you're here.
Thank you.
We're going to begin with a reading, if you want to start.
Let the Sabbath be a time for believing in what could be and seeing with new eyes. In this serious world, let us take ourselves less seriously. In these harsh times, let us listen for a soothing word. While the world around us unfolds in an instant, let us judge each other a little more slowly.
Let the Sabbath shine a light into a corner of ourselves where hope is renewed. Let us remember a reason to be joyful and a way to be gentle. Let the Sabbath be time for opening up. Let us find strength in our dreams and trust in our strength. So I'm delighted that Reverend Sharon Dittmar is here joining us again for this Shabbat service. As you know, our JewishCommunity.org is a initiative of Congregation Beth Adam that's based here in Loveland, Ohio, a congregation with a 36-year history that has been pulling together modern liturgy, modern words to give voice to who we are as Jews in the 21st century, bringing together science, modern thought, intellectual approaches to religion and theology, and finding a way to give expression to it in a way that makes us comfortable who we are today. That's really the mission of our JewishCommunity.org and Congregation Beth Adam, to create a voice for contemporary Judaism. The technology is a methodology. It's not the reason we exist, but it allows us to create community around the world, which is really amazing. It's always wonderful that people can chat in live at 6 o'clock or chat in later if they're watching in archives, because we know lots of people do. This service actually is pre-recorded. We've had a lot of complications with scheduling, your schedule, my schedule. So this is pre-recorded, but it'll be posted at 6 o'clock. So those of you who like to chat live are able to do that and are probably doing right this minute. You're already doing it already, I guess.
And I do read your comments when I'm done. And I see that the ones of you who come back every week, it's lovely.
That's good.
I recognize your voices. You can almost predict what you'd say. It's kind of neat.
So say something unique this time. So you go, wow.
Oh, you can tell who thinks about what after a while. And, yeah.
Good. Well, that's great. We're going to do a candle lighting, and then we have a conversation.
Okay.
So you want to start the candle lighting?
Yes.
And then
Night seeps up from the ground. Light falls from the stars. Distant, icy, ancient beyond all who came before. But the light of the Sabbath is warm. The light of the Sabbath is ours. The light of the Sabbath is of this time, of this place, of lives that know the past only in a dream.
As we kindle these lights, we create a place of warmth. As we kindle these lights, we welcome this time for reflection. As we kindle these lights, we stake our claim. And while the lights burn, the time is ours. Baruch ha'or ba'olam, blessed is the light within the world. Baruch ha'or ba'adam, blessed is the light within each person. Baruch ha'or ba'shabbat, blessed is the light of the Sabbath. So, I'm delighted that you're here.
I'm back.
She's back again, which is great. We have a conversation, and those of you who join us on a regular basis know Reverend Dittmar, know that she's the minister at the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati, that we have collaborated on other things before starting these services together. We used to teach a Bible class together.
We did.
And that was really a blast. So we have something really exciting that we're doing that we're going to start talking about.
Yes.
And it's actually going to be a sequence of things, right?
Yes.
We're going to have this conversation more than once. We are going to Israel.
Can you believe that? I mean, really.
Are you packed yet?
Okay, we'll discuss. The first thing I had to buy was head cover. We'll discuss.
Okay.
I did. I bought. Never. We'll get there.
I want to get there. Okay, so let me give you a context. We're not leaving tomorrow. No. We're not leaving next week. So let me give some big context. The Cincinnati Jewish community, which is where Congregation Beth Adam and First Unit Church are located, there's something very unique is happening. Actually, nothing can be very unique. It is unique in and of itself, right?
Okay.
Right? Unique is a word that doesn't have a modifier typically. The Jewish community of Cincinnati is doing both a citywide Jewish trip, but each congregation is doing an individual trip. So what's happening is about 10 congregations, 11 congregations, we're all going simultaneously to Israel, but each congregation will do its own individualized itinerary. I had already once before done an interfaith trip with another minister, and when this idea of this new trip came forward, that there's this community-wide trip with individual trips, I went, I want to do another interfaith trip because I think it's really exciting. Originally, it was not going to be you. It wasn't like you were second
I'm
choice.
sloppy seconds. Let's be honest. I'm not too offended.
Okay, good. Another friend actually, the minister I'd done it with before, and for a variety of reasons couldn't do it. So I called Sharon up. I said, "You want to go to Israel?" And your answer was,
Yeah.
"Cool,
Of course, ever since seminary.
So we're going the trip to Israel. It's going to be an interfaith trip. Members of Congregation Beth Adam, members of the non-Jewish community, members of your congregation as well, who belong, and we're going to go see Israel together. And when we were talking about the topic, about what we want to do, this would be really unique because you studied it in seminary, but you've never been.
Never.
And we thought that this might be a great opportunity to explore sort of the journey, literally the journey from knowing nothing about this place other than what you've read.
Yes.
And you know what it means, you've preached about it, it's a topic. So that's what this is going to be about. So this first conversation, Israel part 1, is, so what are you thinking, what are you feeling, what are you anticipating, and what are you worried about most, other than traveling with me?
No, that'll be the easy part. And Bob's wife Terry is going. Nice buffer too. She's gonna help me figure out what to wear.
Okay.
There are questions because women there's dress codes in certain places, and I'm sure you haven't been paying attention, but Terry has.
Right.
So I can't.
No, what's interesting. So understand too, there are dress codes for men.
You have to wear long pants sometimes.
Yes, in fact, it was very funny in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
You don't have to cover your head like us.
In Orthodox
You need
Jewish
a
section,
kippah. You need a
kippah, a yarmulke, kippah, a head covering. I actually carry a baseball hat with me.
I have to be like swathed up, no shoulders, no wrists.
Well, and if we go into a Muslim, if we go to a mosque, actually, we were in Jordan years ago, and they actually had big covers for the women.
Yes, they're like tents,
with
hoods.
With hoods. And we have a picture of my kids and some other kids putting them on. It was pretty funny. Not for them, for me.
Like I said, it's harder for the women.
That's it.
So Israel. Okay, so first of all, you need to understand I was a history major as an undergraduate, and so reading about history, politics, lifetime of it. And so I kind of approach a trip to Israel from both a perspective of the religions, which religions have claimed space and consider it an important place, and also its history. And it has a very complicated history, certainly been conquered multiple times. I read somewhere it's like Jerusalem's been destroyed twice, it had been attacked like 23 times, besieged 52, captured and recaptured 44. I mean, just...
Wow.
It's been busy over there.
Yeah, it's a busy place. Because part of it is, when you look at Israel physically, the land, it is the land ridge between Asia, Europe, and Africa.
And the Mediterranean Sea is
right. So people, if you were traveling by caravan, or foot, things like that, you'd cross through it. If you were going by water, you'd bump into it through the Mediterranean Sea. So its place physically in the world is pretty significant, and so people wanted it.
Yes, and I'm not a Christian. So the major world religions that claim space in Jerusalem are Muslim, Jewish, and Christian, and then there's a variety of Christian groups. And then there's ethnic minorities and religious minorities, like the Druze there as well.
Right,
but
Druze.
I'm none of them. So I'm like an outsider looking in. And one of the things Bob told me, one of the first stories which I loved, was when he lived in Israel, his parents came over.
Yeah, it's 1976.
And his parents brought their neighbors, and the neighbors were Lutheran. And what Bob realized was that your parents were coming to Israel,
right,
but the neighbors were going to the Holy Land. And that taught you that Israel is a different place for different people.
Right.
And I thought a lot about that. And so I started to do research about who claims what space. And it gets really complicated, particularly places like Temple Mount. Oh, my goodness. It is like sacred religious place for 3 religions.
For religion. And literally.
Holy moly.
And holy, really. I mean, really sacred space. But
really sacred. There's stories and texts.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's so for the Muslim community, the Temple Mount. If you've ever seen a picture of Israel, or specifically a picture of Jerusalem, and you see the gold dome, that is the Dome of the Rock. That is one of 2 mosques that are on what's called the Temple Mount. If you're Jewish and you learn about the temple, or you've learned about the Wailing Wall or the Western Wall. That wall that you see Orthodox Jews praying at typically is the retaining wall to keep the hill up atop which the temple sat. So the temple was totally destroyed, but
Twice.
But the hill upon which it sat is there and framed with a wall, the western wall being the most significant of the walls that are left. On top of that space, where the temples had been, is built the Dome of the Rock, which is the gold dome. Tradition says there's a big rock in there. I was able to go back in the 70s. I was in there.
When Jews were
we're still,
easily
you get it, you just walk up there.
Non-Muslims had easy access.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where some people, Orthodox Jews in particular, thought that Abraham tried to sacrifice Isaac, that rock with
and Muslims say he tried to sacrifice Ishmael there.
And he hid in the crevice. That's where Muhammad hid in the crevice. And Elijah the prophet was said to go off into heaven in his fiery chariot, and you can actually see a hoof mark.
And this is the site too of the Ark of the Covenant, right? Twice, am I right?
So what would have happened if the temple had been there?
Yeah.
The temple was there. That's where that would have been, and it's also where, if you read the biblical story, God descended once a year on Yom Kippur, and the high priest would go into what's called the Holy of Holies, that place which was God was supposed to come and actually meet. For that reason, there's actually a sign, it used to be there, I don't know if it's still, that Orthodox Jews shouldn't, or no Jew really should walk up on the Temple Mount, because it would be a place that God physically was, which begs the question, if God is omnipresent, wouldn't he be everywhere anyways? But that's another theological question that we're not going to deal with today.
No, not today.
Right. So it's a fascinating place. People hold it, and for those of us who are liberal religious, right, it's interesting place, not sacred place, which is different, right?
So I want to see it.
But don't the Unitarians have a little part of Jerusalem?
No, we don't.
Really? We'll find you a place.
We don't at all.
We'll get you a
There's
house.
4 quarters. We're not part of any of them.
We'll get you like an apartment.
No one would claim any of us there.
The Unitarian quarter, the Unitarian house.
You're laughing. What could we could fight? Let's see. If we were to be angry there, we would fight with fundamentalists. I guess that's what Unitarian Universalists would do. But Temple Mount interests me too, because it's like 3 religions claim this place is sacred, and how are they sharing it? Well, not well. So sacred place can become really, it's powerful, in that way of primal, old magic, special, and what is defiling it in one religion versus another. And so to try and share the sacred space, I kind of want to see it, because I think, to me, it's actually sad that people don't share it well, and that human lives have been sacrificed in attempting to share the sacred space. And to me, I'm like, well, then do human lives matter less than the space? I mean, as a liberal religionist, these are the wonders I have in my mind.
So let's back up a little bit.
Please.
So if you're having this, so to speak, sort of visual of the Temple Mount, drop down and look at the wall below it, the Western Wall, which is where Jews go, which is a divided wall.
The Wailing Wall, too, right?
It's called the Wailing Wall. It's called the Wailing Wall.
And you put notes in the cracks.
Right. But the women are on one side,
yes,
and the men are on the other. The men have a larger section.
And you have to wear a kippah, right? If you get close enough?
Well, you have to, if you walk past the fence.
Yeah.
But so there's fights now, and you can read about the women of the wall. That's part of the group that's been trying to do it. But even within one religion, and within Judaism, there is this strong dynamic, anger, conflict between an Orthodox interpretation of what is Judaism, who then has control over that piece of religious space. It's interesting. Religion in Israel, religions actually have freedom, except within Judaism, because the Orthodox get control the way Judaism is interpreted in Israel.
Yes.
So you're going to go to this place that has sort of this religious dynamic going on there, but beyond that, is the notion that for lots of Jews and lots of Israelis, they're absolutely secular. What the thing is, and I think that's the other piece of all this, is Jewish identity is about peoplehood, and Israel was a function of peoplehood, not about religion. It really came out of the idea of, we want to be a normalized people in the 1800s, or actually a little bit earlier, that to be normal was to have a piece of land, right? And to have a state and have a place to go.
Very capitalistic, I need to add. History major, I warned you.
Okay, that's it.
I need a piece of land. Okay.
Well, but if you were displaced people and you had
diaspora.
It was not just about capital. It was about the fact that we were not citizens anywhere. Up until the founding of the state of until the America, Jews were always guests in other countries. We didn't have full civil rights.
You know, and I was thinking of it from the perspective, the lens of First Persons, First Nations here in North America, the native populations, that they felt they were stewards of the land. The land actually wasn't theirs to own. They didn't have a sense of property right, yet they thought of themselves as the first person. So when I said capitalism, I was actually thinking of all of the settlers who had to settle North America, my descendants among them, who thought, well, no, some of them came to Ohio and Pennsylvania a long time ago. We didn't go out west, though. But still, we were taking the land from the people who had been here initially, and then, wanting to stake a little barnyard claim, that was the way the Europeans thought about it.
Right.
Not the people here.
No, they thought about it, and so when we go to Israel, you're going to find both this religious component and this incredible sense of peoplehood. I mean, and what's fascinating, Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, two major cities, New York and LA, 45 minutes apart by cab, right?
Wow, that's close.
I mean, you're talking about, when I lived in Jerusalem, we would go to Tel Aviv.
And they're really different cities. I've been reading up.
They're 180 degrees different. One is
Bauhaus architecture. I cannot wait to see it.
That's in Tel Aviv. Yeah, we're going to do a walking tour of that. But Tel Aviv is one of those gay-friendly cities in the world.
I love that. No one's going to care about my hair or head cover.
Right. No, it's a hip, happening Mediterranean city. Yeah. Go 45 minutes to Jerusalem. You have a strongly religious, oftentimes dominated by the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community there, and you have this incredible contrast. And I think that for a lot of folks, when they go there for the first time, it's really remarkable. For going back to that story about my mom and dad and their friends who were strongly Lutheran, very, very religious. For them, they wanted to see the places Jesus had been. Of
course.
Right? So for them, they were seeing that, but they didn't see the peoplehood piece of it, which for my parents was really meaningful, having lived through World War II, right? I mean, so it was this two experience. Then there's the sort of the whole complexity of the Middle East.
And can I tell you, I'm just curious about the not seeing the other. So when I go, I'm always interested in the other story, the story that's not mine, that I don't really know. So there are like all these people who live in Israel who are just like, do I have enough to eat? Do I have a job? Are my kids safe? I mean, regular folks, they're like, that.
Right. I mean, it's a country.
They're not invested in everyone's idea of religious space, even people in Israel not all. They want to live.
They want to live. They want to job. I mean, Israel, the other things that we're going to deal with there, and the reason I think going to Israel is important for Americans is there's multiple other issues going on. Climate change is a real issue there.
There is no rain in Israel in the months of June, July, August.
Right.
How do they survive?
And actually, there's just a new study done about how many people in the world, and it's strikingly high, who are now living with severe water crisis. Israel's a country that has dealt with severe water crisis. It's probably one of the only places in the world that I know of in the newspaper they actually list the level of the Sea of Galilee.
Wow.
The Kinneret, the Sea of Galilee, Kinneret, same place, because it's so important. They share water. I mean, you're talking about a place where water is, talk about sacred. Water's sacred there. You don't wash your car.
You're going to die if you don't drink water.
Right, and in fact, it's interesting. There's a peace museum in.
No one washes their car there?
Not like we do. You wash it. You take a bucket and you wash it. You don't take a hose and sit there and spray a car.
Or go through the big machine.
Right. We Americans use water like it, particularly in the Midwest. Those in California don't actually have this experience. California is really
we're right by a river here in Cincinnati.
So we don't think about it. So we're going to deal with, drip irrigation. How do you deal with water? How do you deal with, desalination? What are these issues? Israel's incredibly.
Is the Sea of Galilee salty, or is it
No, it's fresh.
water?
It's fresh water. So what happens is there's different tributaries to the Jordan. Jordan's going to look like a mud river, like a little stream, because
That's
most
what I've heard.
because the songs that we hear, the gospels, the spirituals, the Jordan River is mighty and wide. That was the Mississippi. The people who were singing were looking at the Mississippi, and they imagined it to be what the Jordan would look like. Jordan's nothing. There are parts you cross it, you don't even know you've crossed it.
Yes, and you wouldn't want to accidentally cross it, because one of my coworkers at work was in Israel last year with her church, so it was a Christian pilgrimage to the
Right.
Holy Land, and she has these photos of like the minefields around the River Jordan, and don't get into the Jordan at the wrong place, and don't cross the River Jordan, or you're in the country Jordan,
Right.
and that's considered hostile. And I was just like, oh my goodness, this is not the message of Jesus. You know, I just was full of wonder. Let's put it
Well,
that
so
way.
you're going to see, all these contrasts. You know, so there's that. The other issue in Israel, so we have that. Israel's highly technological. I mean, so it was very advanced. So there's that. It's very entrepreneurial. It's a big piece of the Israel because it's allowed it to survive. You're going to see militarization. You're going to see weapons. Which is for people who aren't used to it, and you're going to see security.
Trotting off to synagogue with your M16, because that's the way you do it when you're a soldier.
Well, if you're a soldier, you carry your gun, your weapon.
She took a photo of that too.
Right.
They were going to synagogue. It was like a unit, and
Well,
they
there
all
are-
had their M16s.
There are, and you probably won't notice them. I've been in Israel long enough. I do notice the bomb disposal bins in different places. So in case there's a bomb, they don't have to bring one in. It's already pre-existing. There's going to be getting.
This just blows me away. That's a bad, terrible pun. My dad somewhere is very pleased with me. That is a terrible pun. It just, I don't even know what to
Shocking.
make of
It's
that.
stunning.
I don't know what to make. I don't.
So we're going to go through.
Speechless.
We're going to go through. You know, if you go into certain places like the mall, you'll go through a metal detector, or you'll get wanded going into a restaurant. You know, like we do. You know, like we do through an airport, or even outdoor markets. Oftentimes have control gates, so that only you can't come in from every which way. You can only go through a controlled entrance, so people are wanded or.
Okay, and can I tell you an egghead historical thing that I'm
Sure.
curious about? I do think because this land has been occupied by so many cultures, it was occupied by Rome, it was occupied by the Umayyads, the Mamluks, the Ottomans, the British, the Palestinian Mandate. You know, like we're going to go to Masada. So excited. Okay, but like.
If you want to, we're taking the cable car up.
I'm fine with that. It's going to be 100 degrees. So let's take that cable car all the way and back. So, but you know, these are people who were besieged by Rome, chose to commit suicide prior to Rome's entrance.
Right.
And they wouldn't have done well at the hands of Rome anyway, because Rome was not merciful to people who caused them trouble. But, you know, it's kind of like this has been a country that has lived with a lot of, like, violence and occupation. And how does that mark you as a people,
Right.
as a place? You know, I don't know. I have more questions than I have answers, and I'm just curious to observe. And yet I know at the same time people in Israel sit down and have fun and laugh and get married and have kids. I mean, they're not all like discussing politics every day. How could you?
No, I mean, you're going to find. I mean, the thing about Israel, which is also interesting, if you go to a wedding, I mean, these parties rock. These people are having a good time. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of fun. There's a lot of laughter. It's a real place, and I think that's the other piece that's going to be so interesting. It's like a real place. These people, you're going to go to stores. It's high fashion, high art, interesting.
I love that.
You know, it is a country of contrast, and I think for a lot of us as Americans, it sort of heightens it. We're going to deal with questions that we don't deal with: water, security. Physical space is very limited there. There's just not a lot of land, and you know, it's interesting when we host, the congregation hosts Israeli kids during the summer, and they look at the houses out here where we are, and they go, how many families live in that house? And we say, well, one family. And they say, well, it must be a really big family. You know, no, there's 3 people, 2 people, 1. And they go, they can't understand why we have such big places, or we take them to a store like Target or Costco, and they're overwhelmed because they just don't. There may be 1 or 2 of those places there, but they're smaller than what we have. We have size and space here.
Yeah.
We're going to deal with places that don't have size and space, where you can walk across a border inadvertently.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I mean, it's fascinating. You can walk into Canada.
Do I have time to tell you the things I'm most interested in seeing?
Yes.
How much time do I have?
You have about 3 minutes.
Holy moly. Okay. So, things I didn't know about until this tour. So, what's the place up north that's the site of the village it's an artist colony, but also Kabbalah? Svat. Never heard of it. Cannot wait. Okay, mysticism in any religion is always really interesting, plus art. And then Yad Vashem, that'll be painful,
Right.
but important.
Right. Yeah. So Yad Vashem is
Holocaust
the
Memorial Museum.
It's the museum. It's also the repository of historical data. So they have a massive arm that just does. It's an archives. So they have the archives. I think some of the movies that Spielberg made are there. Some of the interviews, I think they're also there. So there's a lot of documentation. The museum is they redid it. It's the new version of it. Those of us who have been there back in the 70s remember the older one. Is very well done. Then the land is quite large, so there's also a place that has tributes to non-Jews who saved Jews. It's like Miep Geis who saved Anne Frank.
And 2 Unitarians, Martha and Wade Still Sharp, they're in there.
Okay, so we can
Righteous Among Nations.
Righteous Among Nations. There's also some beautiful memorials. So Yad Vashem, incredibly powerful place. It's okay.
Dead Sea, again, the history nerd in me. The Dead Sea Scrolls. I cannot wait to see them. And the Dead Sea, I still want to float in I've wanted to float in the Dead Sea for years. I don't know why. I just have. I cannot wait. I won't bring a bikini. A, no one wants to see me in one. But B, I don't want to frighten anyone who has issues with modesty. And then
The other thing you do is people put mud on themselves in the Dead Sea.
I want to do that.
And it's sort of like what do you call that?
A clay mud, like it's going to detoxify.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
need that.
Okay.
And then
I don't do that.
why not?
It's
just not your thing.
Not my thing.
You did it once?
I did it once.
Okay, good. Did it feel good?
It's weird. You got to do it once.
All right.
You can't sink and you can't drift across because if you drift across, you're in
Jordan?
You're in Jordan.
Oh, don't drift across. No drifting. Okay, and then the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is where Jesus was supposed to have been crucified. But there's 6 different religions that claim parts of this congregation that have access to it, but a Muslim holds the key because they don't trust each other to hold the key. And I think because I was raised a Christian, I was raised Presbyterian, I just think my dad would have so wanted to go here. He was very devout. And so, but also like, why aren't these people getting along in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre? I don't mean to be naive, but again,
you'll see there's actually what's fascinating. There was a ladder on the second.
I've heard about this ladder. It's been there over 150 years.
Yes, because they can't agree on whether it can be taken down or not. So it still sits there.
Sacred space.
And I thought it was funny, humorous, but it goes to it. There was 2 groups, and I can't remember 2 groups, and I think they were 2 different groups of monks of 2 different religions, and their Vesper service were overlapping, and as one got louder, the other got louder, and they just kept on trying to out-sing each other, and it was like, wow.
This just makes me sad.
So I think the other piece of it is we see tension across lots of levels.
Yes.
It's easy sometimes we just talk about the sort of the Jewish Arab conflict as the issue, but there's lots of conflicts among groups that are supposed to be like-minded. Jews are conflicted over Orthodoxy versus liberal Judaism. The Christian world is having it in this one church, and then there's another site that Anglicans claim is where Jesus.
The Calvary.
The Calvary. Yeah. So because they say, I still remember when I went into the Anglican place where the person met us and said, "Oh, you went to that Smells and Bells place." That was his reference to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre because that had much more. It was much.
Okay.
They had that element. So you sit there and you go, they're arguing over. I mean,
why don't people share sacred space?
They don't.
Maybe that's naive.
Okay, so they can't share, and they're each claiming something is true, which nobody knows if it happened, where it would have happened, because where the church is in the old city, I can't remember the queen or the woman who rode through on her horse and had visions, and she said, "Oh, this happened here and this happened here." I mean, none of these places, there are no signs there, and everyone's claiming.
So it's the best guess of the hill, the best guess of the place.
It's not even best guess. It's my vision. It's my vision.
Guess.
So.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to it. This trip's in July. We're going to come back. We're going to probably do another.
I'm going to tell you what I found out after.
But we'll talk as we get closer too, because we're going to do some programming beforehand.
I already found a cafe I want to go to. It's a Palestinian women's co-op.
Where?
It's in the Christian Quarter, and then there's a market that's a Palestinian women's goods.
Really?
And I want to walk over there and see it.
So that's cool. So we got a lot to go. So it's going to be really exciting. We're going to continue. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be hot, but it's going to be a blast. Take a lot of water.
Sensible shoes.
Sensible shoes and water. You're really worried about that head cover. We're going to talk about that later. So we're going to continue with a challah reading. So for those of you.
It's shiny. Look how beautiful.
You want to read that because you're so excited?
Well, I am. Some weeks you know it's not very pretty looking. That's why the cover just stays on it. Okay. From the earth a seed
It's a secret.
They already know.
I'm
It's
sorry.
not a secret.
Oh, no.
From the earth a seed harbored in darkness, from heat and cold and wet and dry to wind and air and rain. Golden ground, flour from wheat, with water and yeast, active and alive. Always something saved. From the earth, sweetness and salt, from nature tamed oil and eggs. Mixed and rested in darkness and warmth, kneaded smooth, made right by touch. Hands that shape, mouths that want. From the earth, our challah, our warmth.
Baruch Hamal Kapenu, blessed is the work of our hands. Baruch Hazon Ha'adam, blessed is the vision of our minds. Baruch Lechem Ha'aretz, blessed is the bread of the earth. And then you have some juice or some wine. Feel free to join me as we lift the cup together as a tribute to our past, as a blessing for the future. May the allure of its untold flavors beckon us forever to keep uncovering new branches, new roots that hold us together. Tonight, as we welcome the Shabbat, may we find time to spend in our own quiet company and listen to the calling of our hearts. Bruchim ha'chayim ba'olam, blessed is the life within the world. Bruchim ha'chayim ba'adam, blessed is the life within each person. And so we say l'chaim, to life.
L'chaim.
Oh, it's juice. It's so sweet. Couple quick announcements. Next week will be March 4th. Sarah Weiss from the Holocaust Center, the Center for Holocaust Humanity Education in Cincinnati, will be joining me. Sarah has actually been here before. She's joining me in part because she's a friend, a scholar. We're also co-partnering the Center for Holocaust Humanity Education, the Lytton Concert Series, and Congregation Beth Adam /ourjewishcommunity.org. We're hosting Daniel Hope. He is actually going to be at First Church as part of the Lytton. And he is, he researched the music of the Holocaust.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, he has we're showing there's going to be a movie in Cincinnati, and he's speaking. I mean, he's a very interesting guy.
When's he coming?
March 6th and 7th. So this is all part of all that. So we're going to have Sarah's going to be here. It's also because it's going to be the first Shabbat of March. If you have memorials, please send them in. Also, as I always say, go to our Facebook page. You'll see what's going on. By the time you see this, I'm hopeful that we'll have a video interview with Rabbi Rami Shapiro, who's going to be speaking in town in Cincinnati at Congregation Beth Adam. Will be joining me for services as well. We'll have done, and we're going to probably do some videos. Go to our website, take a look, stay engaged. You can always write me at rabbi@ourjewishcommunity.org. It's great having you. I'm looking forward to our trip. We're going to have a blast. And as we always say, may we know blessings those who are near, and may we know blessings those who are far. And may the Sabbath bring its goodness to everyone soon, wherever they are. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's great having you. I'm looking forward to our trip. We're going to have a blast. And as we always say, may we know blessings those who are near, and may we know blessings those who are far. And may the Sabbath bring its goodness to everyone soon, wherever they are. Shabbat Shalom.